Have you ever thought to yourself, why is it my responsibility to fix the struggles inside of our marriage? Hey there, I'm Sharon Pope. I help strong and successful women who are struggling in disconnected marriages get the confidence and clarity they need to either fix the struggles inside their marriage or move forward without regret. If you like what you hear on this channel, I hope you'll subscribe. If you have ever thought to yourself, why is it my responsibility to fix the problems inside our marriage? Why isn't my spouse doing something to make the marriage better? So I was working with a client today, and it was about a week ago that she told me they had this big sort of blow up, she and her husband. And there was a lot of anger, and there was a lot of tears. So there was sadness and anger, but there was also a lot of truth telling going on. Things that needed to be said over the course of the last several years that neither of them ever spoke. So it really was sort of a breakthrough moment, even though it was a really difficult conversation that took place over the course of many, many hours together. So this week I'm on a call with her, and she tells me that nothing's happened since then. And she knows why nothing has happened. And the reason is she hasn't made anything happen. She hasn't initiated another conversation, a follow-up to the meltdown that they had a week earlier. And so nothing's changed. She says, he's trying. I see him trying in little ways to make the marriage better, but we haven't come back together and had any follow-up conversations. So it feels very unresolved. And the reason why she hadn't initiated anything is because she was getting a little bit angry about, why is it my responsibility? I mean, I shared how I feel about where we're at in this marriage, but I feel like I do everything as it relates to our relationship and our family and our home. And why is this just one more thing that I have to do? Why can't he do it? So I want to share with you what I shared with her. And it's a bit of a long-winded response, and I promise I will get you to the point of it. And you may not necessarily love what you hear, but hang in there with me. If you have ever felt like you're doing it all, and why do you have to do one more thing, like fix the marriage? I know that this is going to hold something for you. So I only keep 2 books in my cabinet right behind my desk. The rest of my books are in a bookshelf because I have many. This isn't one of them, but if I was to have a third book in my bookshelf here, it would be this book. And it's The Dance of Intimacy with Harriet Lerner, by Harriet Lerner. Now, you get to about page 5 in this book before you really get confronted with some really hard truths. So first, where she begins is sort of the role of men and women over the course of generations. Now, where we are as men and women in relationship today is very different than our mother's generation, and certainly different than our grandmother's generation. In my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation, we needed men, right? It was way more about finding a man for financial status and social acceptability than it is today. But I feel like particularly women of, I'll call it my age, call it 40s and 50s, we are in a time of real transition, of where previously there was a lot of clarity as it related to the roles, right? My mother's generation and grandmother's generation, they knew what their role was in the family. There was very little freedom, but there was great clarity. Well, now we're in a different situation where we have a lot of freedom, but not a lot of clarity about what our role is inside the marriage and what our spouse's role is inside the marriage. And so that creates some ambiguity. And I think for a lot of women, we think, oh, well, now it's going to be equal. But here's the thing. Men never got that memo that it was going to be equal. Women, we knew that because we had to work for and reach for having a seat at the table when it came to work and life and voting and all the things. But there was never like this reckoning between the sexes of where we said, okay, well, now that we're doing more of this, that means you're also going to have to do more of this role, the nurturing, the caretaking, that sort of role. And so we've never gotten real clarity as it relates to our roles inside of a relationship, particularly heterosexual relationships. Because who taught our husbands how to be a man? Their fathers. What did their fathers know about being a man? You work, you provide. Never was there a conversation about how to love a woman, how to connect with a woman, what intimacy really is, how to communicate, how to really listen. Like, there was no class, there was no like conversation that took place that our husbands missed. It just didn't happen. And so one of the things that Harriet Lerner talks about in this book is that until we start to expect more, I'll actually read it to you because I think it's really confronting the way that she talks about it. Men seldom become scholars on the subject of changing their intimate relationships because they do not yet need to. Women often demand surprisingly little in relationships with men, whether the issue at hand is emotional nurturance or who cleans up the kitchen. We may settle for small change with a lover or husband and tolerate behaviors and living arrangements that we would not find acceptable or deem fair in a close female relationship. Until we are able to expect more from men in order to stay with them or continue business as usual, it is unlikely that men will feel called upon to change or even pay attention. In marriage, the gap between men and women in their attunement to relationships often widens dramatically over time. Dad need not notice that little Sam has holes in his sneakers or even that his mother's birthday is coming up if his wife moves in and takes up the slack and handles the problem. Nor need he put much emotional energy into his parents' arrival for an extended visit if his spouse will plan their entertainment or make sure there's enough toilet paper in the house. Get ready, here's the punch in the gut. As long as women function for men, men will have no need to change. So men are not rewarded for having a loving, healthy, connected marriage. They're rewarded for being successful at work and providing. Where we are natural nurturers, and we are the first to notice when the relationship goes south, we are the first to go seeking answers, and we take it on. And you might say, well, I'm not doing that anymore. But here's what I want to offer you. Someone has to take the lead. If you take the example of my client who they had this big blow up argument, but now there's been no follow up. And the reason for that is because she's not initiated anything. Except she's the one that wants change in the relationship. She's the one that wants to see, can this marriage evolve to a new place? Or is this as far as we can go together? And then we need to make arrangements to unwind the marriage. So she's trying to sort of push the envelope to see what's possible in the relationship. So she's the one that wants that clarity. Someone is going to have to step forward. Why not her? The other thing I would offer is that, and this is something that Harriet Lerner talks about in this book, is that whenever there is a, call it a dominant and a subordinate role, which, let's face it, ladies, men have always been in the dominant role for a long time. That is obviously changing, where women have been in a more subordinate role for a long time, like, I don't know, hundreds of centuries. Right? Now that's changing, but it doesn't change overnight. When that is the case, the one in the subordinate role always knows more about the one in the dominant role than the other way around, right? So women, traditionally, we know more about men than men do about women. You know why? Because they didn't have to know. We had to know in order to catch a man, right? That's what our parents' generation. But for my generation, I had to know more about men because if I wanted a seat at the table in the boardroom, I had to learn how to do it their way, right? It wasn't like they were going to learn to do it my way. So I had to be more masculine and I had to learn sort of my opponent's way of being, if you want to put it that way. So we know more. So under the question of Well, why should I have to do it? I would also offer to you, not just you're the one that wants change, but also you're better equipped to do it. You know more. You can lead this. You're better at nurturing. You're better at communication. You know men. You know your husband. Probably, I don't want to say probably better than he knows himself, but you know a lot about your husband, right? And so why not you? This is like anything, right? When you wait until your partner is going to be ready to do what you want them to do, you might be waiting forever. Wouldn't it just be easier to take the necessary steps forward, to take the lead on it? Don't enable it, right? So what I told her is, you can set up these conversations. I teach this in my coaching of how to set up these conversations. You can kickstart it and you can make it happen. And then you hand it off and say, okay, I've done this for 2 weeks. Why don't you take the next 2 weeks to initiate these conversations, right? So that's where I'm going to take the lead and then I'm going to hand it off. And in doing that, what she'll get? Clarity. Can this marriage evolve beyond where it is or no? But if we just both sit back and wait and think something's magically going to just get better or that clarity will come, it's never going to happen, right? So if that nagging, well, why do I have to do it? Why can't he do some work? Why can't he reach out to a therapist or a coach or whatever? If that has been the thing that is sort of holding you back from seeing, can the marriage evolve or not? I want to offer, don't wait for the other person to take the step forward. If this is what you want for your life, you take that step forward. It will pay off in big dividends through clarity. So if you would like to explore if there's a fit for you and I to work together in a private coaching capacity, you can go to clarityformymarriage.com. And if you like what you heard, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to be notified every time I post a new video, then there is a red icon that I want you to click. It's in the upper left corner at the very end of this video. I hope this was helpful for you. Take really good